Yeah, we actually do a lot of upper back work. Pretty much everyone does some sort of shrug or upper back movement per week, at least once a week. Suzanne and Brad actually have a whole day devoted to back work. People do pull-ups, they do shrugs, they do face pulls, rows to hit your upper back. Do a lot of T-bar, which if you stand up enough, gets a lot of trap involvement. Your traps are, your upper back is very useful for all three lifts. You need it for your shelf for your squat, helps with lockout on deadlift, and it gets you a good base and good ability to drift to lockout on bench. So you can't neglect it, but at the same time you need to make sure your volume for your upper back is controlled so that it doesn't affect any of those lifts, because it is an integral part of each lift. You need to make sure that you're not stressing it out, doing too many shrugs so that you can't put a bar on your back when you're squatting. Or you get really loose when you're squatting, because if your upper back gets loose, your lower back will get loose during a squat and you'll miss it. So you have to make sure you control it really well. Either have a whole day for upper back work, like Brad and Suzanne, because they only bench once a week, or if you bench twice a week, do upper back work on your lower volume day or lower intensity day, and kind of switch it up. If you're doing it on your DE day where you have more volume but lower intensity, you can work your shrugs, for instance, at a higher intensity but a lower volume, just to make sure that everything's under control.
Alright, this question is about how do you keep your hips under you when you squat. I think foundationally the two most important things are having strong enough glutes and hamstrings, because what happens with most people when they start, pretty much everyone universally is quad dominant. So what happens when you go to squat, you're going to keep the weight on your quads, you're going to come down, and you're going to realize the only way you can get back up is to rock forward and do that whole dance. So one is you just need to get your hamstrings strong enough so your body's confident and comfortable. Because when you get near your max, your body's just going to revert to using the strongest muscle group you have. The other thing is we do with our newer people, we have them do glute activation, where it's even better if you stand a little wider than you normally would. And the idea is you want to go back and sit down, and you want to be past perpendicular to your shins, and you should be able to stand up just firing your glutes. And if you can't do this, then you need a lot more glute work, and you have to learn how to use your glutes. If you have to do that to stand up, you need a lot more glute work.
This question is about how I can get depth super wide when I'm raw. I did a lot of Olympic lifting, so my hips are really flexible. I'm used to catching cleans down here. So it really just, I have a lot of hip flexibility and a lot of strength in that area. So, but you can actually develop that where you move your stance out wider and wider. Just move out your stance, do some squats, make sure you keep your knees out the whole time and sit back, and then you'll actually sink down there. Now, if you're a person who squats knees forward, more Olympic style with a high bar, you can do that. I'm not saying that that's not correct, because obviously, Melanchiev did 1,036 like that. But the key is when you do that, you need to sink your torso between your thighs if you do a front knees forward squat. So you go like this, and then you sink. Too many people just slide, and you don't end up getting below parallel that way. So if you want to bring your squat out wider, just keep working it, and keep working wider and wider and wider and wider, and eventually you can get down. Or you can squat the other way.
Okay, this question is about ME lifts for a raw lifter. Usually what we do for raw lifters is they actually do the similar ME lifts that geared lifters do. The main difference is they use less accommodation, because you want the total weight at the top to be within 10% of your max. But the whole idea of your ME lifts that you want to pick is, if you're a raw lifter, do a two board. The idea is you want to handle more weight that you can do full range to prepare your body to handle that heavier weight in the future. And you want to do the same thing if you're using bands or chains. So we don't really change it that much for a raw lifter. The exception would be like, we wouldn't really have a raw lifter do like a 4-board max on bench, because that's pretty useless for a raw bencher. it can work as great as an accessory from higher reps, but for a max effort, we usually do 2 more or less. This question is about shoulder work and more so military pressing and how it affects your bench pressing. We don't do military press like in the traditional way where you think about it in front, because what happens is you train your front delts a lot when you bench, so doing something that front delt focused just beats the crap out of your shoulders, and then you start having recovery issues. We tend to do more of our pressing straight in line overhead. It reduces the range of motion a little. You'll get more emphasis on your triceps, but you'll still get to work your shoulders, and it's more of an even work on your shoulders versus requiring so much work on the front delts. And then we do a lot of dumbbell work for the shoulders. We'll do arm raises, we'll do front, lateral, bent over arm raises, and we'll also hit face pulls for rear delts. We tend to do a lot more rear delt focused work than we do front delt focused work, just because benching works your front delts a lot.
It's on bent over rows and different variations of it. Almost everybody does them overhand grip, either with or without straps, depending on how many reps you're doing. There's several variations of the bent over row. You can do more of a what's called a Penlay row. Glenn Penlay wrote about this a lot. He was an Olympic lifter. But basically you deload the bar on every rep, and you're supposed to accelerate it into your body. So it starts pretty slow off the ground and boom, pops into your body. That's a Penlay row. There's more of a 45-degree angle bent over row like this. Often we do these for higher reps. And then there's a full parallel bent over row where you don't deload it at the bottom. And you just do that. We do those mostly for higher reps. As far as whether we do them for a main lift versus an accessory, bent over rows for us are strictly an accessory. You don't really want to go to a max on them. You want to hit 5 rep, 8 rep, 10 rep, 20 rep PRs. For the 20 rep stuff, you'll want it, higher, more of a 45-degree angle bent over. And I do most of my rowing work between 225 and 365. Questions about getting dizzy when you're squatting or blowing an eyeball or blowing out your face, breaking capillaries, whatever. A lot of that, it can be like just how your body deals with pressure individually. But one way you can try to combat that is by breathing properly, and that's breathing deep into your belly, pulling the air in with your diaphragm, not holding it up in your face and throat. A lot of people have to take a deep, slow breath to do that, so you just and hold it in your belly. It also helps you keep your belly tighter against your belt, and that way you can be real tight, and you get down and you're not holding the air up in your face. You're not like that, so it doesn't build up a whole lot of pressure in your head. But that doesn't always work. Like I said, it can depend a lot on your individual, whatever, genetics, whatever you want to call it.